In so many years, melanin-dominant human beings have been subjected to exploitation, colonization, enslavement by the capitalist maritime nations of Western Europe and other marauders like Christians, Jews, and Muslims. If you are a melanin-dominant human being, a Mun or so-called African, and at the same time you follow Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, you have joined the invaders who destroy and exploit our continent and our resources. They have seized and laid waste our natural resources, and by the end of the 19th century, almost the whole of Africa had been conquered by trickery or by force of arms and superior arms, and brought beneath the alien yoke of a handful of European powers: Britain, France, Portugal, Belgium, Germany, and Spain. At the end of the Second World War, only Ethiopia and Liberia could claim to be African states governed by Africans. But by the year 2000, the whole picture had been transformed. Bitter blood wars had been fought in Angola, Mozambique, Kenya, Zimbabwe, the Republic of South Africa, Southwest Africa, Namibia today, as well as Guinea-Bissau. Many other African countries had been given their freedom and independence, so-called independence, on a silver platter. But that scenario alone tells us that the African revolution has been lost. Today, we have proof that the African revolution is no more, because African presidents and their first ladies, including government officials and ministers and ambassadors, all attended the burial of the Queen of England and mourned and wept for the Queen of England, despite the proof that she sits on the throne that a family or her family has used to exploit, to cause blood and wars on their own people. Proof that a revolution has been successful or is a success is found when there is economic gain without any controls by external forces, territorial gain where the whole territory, not only parts of it, are gained, where people exercise their own religion, where nationalism is not defined by the borders crafted in Europe, where reparations are paid without us begging, but by us only saying reparations and we get them. Reparations are paid to the victors, not to the victims. Other wars and conflicts are managed properly by our own systems, and the revolutionary war in various areas and spheres of life continues to develop and give and open doors to defend the nation or to defend the whole continent. Nationalist or nationalism is not by the borders, the fake borders that were created by the exploiters. Other regions like the Middle East do not exist in history. They were created by the colonizers. There are nations in Africa that are run by Europe. But Africa is just one big continent. It is time for us to clearly understand how our revolution was lost through a plan that we can divulge and share today to many people that are willing to hear it. The plan to dominate Africans was put in place all along and continues to be in operation today. It is called the Charter of Imperialism. It is found in Belgium, a museum. It was drawn up in Washington during the slave trade, then quietly negotiated and used as the blueprint to negotiate the Berlin Conference in 1884. While the Western powers shared Africa, they renegotiated the whole world, how they can split it in two blocks after the Second World War, in which they can continue to use the League of Nations to build another organization, the United Nations, to continue to exploit Africa and all other indigenous lands. This proof that the Charter of Imperialism is in operation is clear in the behavior of African leaders we have already alluded to. It has 28 articles, and we shall look at a number of articles today. Article number 1, from the motto of imperialism, says the governing of the world and controlling of the riches of the planet. Our policy is to divide and conquer, dominate, exploit, and loot to fill our banks and make them the most powerful in the world. It is happening. That's why we got the third world. And that's why Africa, which is the richest continent, has the poorest people. Article 2, no third world country constitute a sovereign and independent state. Article 3, all power in third world countries comes from us, who exert it through pressure on the leaders who are only our puppets. No wonder why they all rushed to Europe, to Britain, to the Buckingham Palace to mourn the Queen, their puppets. France reboots its neo-colonialism in Africa and exploits Africa. The CIA, through its dirty work, exploits Africa. That we have other people like Operation Dudula in South Africa that exercise and exploit xenophobic definitions by borders, saying others are foreigners in South Africa. No organ of the third world can attribute to it in this exercise. So you can do your Operation Dudula, but you are still an exploited individual wherever you are in South Africa. Article 4. All third world countries and their borders are divisible and their borders displaceable according to our will. Respect for territorial integrity does not exist for the third world. So it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter your Operation Dudula. It doesn't matter your revolution, your revolutionary name, your revolutionary slogan. You don't have any power other than exploiting your own brothers and sisters. Article 5. All dictators must put their fortunes in our banks for the security of our interests. This fortune will be used for donations and credits granted by us as assistance and development aid to third world countries. This is exactly what we can see with the Sani Abacha loot and many other leaders that have looted and exploited their own countries on behalf of the colonizer. It is a shame. Section 3, Treaties and Agreements, Article 8, says we do not negotiate agreements and contracts with third world countries. We impose what we want and they do that. You can read the book by John Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. You can see the poverty in Africa rising despite its wealth, massive wealth. You can watch the video, Keeping Africa Poor by All Means, which is shown here. You can find the 6 ways used by the West to keep Africa forever poor. You can also read other African scholars like Dr. Claude Anderson, who tells us what is really happening and what really occurred. That in 1860, 99% of melanin-dominant human beings in America worked for whites. Perhaps the whole world worked for whites. Today, 98% are still working for whites. We are still working for whites. We are living under a great illusion. Article 12 deals about third world opinion or right to have their law. We do not have our law. You can see here judges in Zimbabwe still follow the British style, Westminster style. The common law of Zimbabwe is primarily the Roman Dutch law, which was applied at the Cape of Good Hope on the 10th of June 1891. As per the provisions of Section 89 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. So in their constitution, in our constitution, they put a section to safeguard the Roman Dutch law. The common law was transplanted from the Cape and imposed into Zimbabwe. And we've got lawyers today, people that go and study this and exploit it and use it and behave as if they are very smart. South Africa has a hybrid legal system that stems from a number of legal traditions, from the Romans, from the Dutch, from the common law of the British, and a little bit of customary law. Article 13 says third world countries have neither culture nor civilization, without referring to Western civilization. That's why you have black Hebrew Israelites that follow Judaism. You have got Christians that follow Rome. Every Christian is a Roman Catholic. You have got Muslims, black Muslims that follow countries like Saudi Arabia. So every Muslim, black Muslim, follows either white Arabs. No two ways about that. The wars of African independence failed because in many instances a ceasefire was later negotiated in Europe, chaired by European diplomats. You can see the Lancaster House here for Kenya in 1963 and 1979 for Zimbabwe. So there's no winning there. If you win, you don't have to negotiate with the loser. So the winners here are the British Lord Carrington. Portugal also negotiated to end its wars in its territories: Mozambique, Angola, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, and many others. So our revolution was lost. The challenge of African economic recovery and development is tied and hog-tied to money, which constitutes the capital that is required today in this civilization, which was formalized by the Rothschild family monopoly, which has global networks, which is how they hijacked our revolution. Vanguard, BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, State Street, British Berkshire Hathaway, all these banks and institutions hijacked our revolution. So all so-called revolutions like the Green Revolution, the African Development Bank, African or Black Industrial Revolution are all under the guidance and the control of money, which is capital, monopolistic capital. The African nationalist movement, patriotic spirit, sovereignty in defense of national borders in the African continent, digital revolution, African politics, democracy, elections, etc., including political parties like ZANU-PF, KANU, FRELIMO, MPLA, ANC, SWAPO, were all infiltrated. And the leaders ended up selling us out big time. For example, Kenyatta was not a genuine revolutionary. This is said to say that we have failed, and they have failed. They are melanin-dominant human beings. Bildad Kagia and Kungu Karumba say Kenyatta was not a Mau Mau, and they knew nothing about the Mau Mau. He was a beneficiary of circumstances, a sellout who denounced the Mau Mau. Jomo Kenyatta here, the anti-Mau Mau meeting or rally in August 1952. In the Red Circle is senior chief Waruihu. He was killed by some Mau Mau later. History is always written by the victors. Now you think that Jomo Kenyatta was an African revolutionary, that Mandela was an African revolutionary, that Kwame Nkrumah was an African revolutionary, that a lot of leaders who are Freemasons are African revolutionaries. It is a shame indeed, a pathetic shame indeed. It is clear that African revolution has been lost. What is the way forward? Yes, identify those that are working for Shatta. How do you do that? We have shown that. You can see where their allegiance lies. It's not their words, it's not their rallies, it's not their speeches, it's their actions. Are they working to destroy the charter of imperialism that is found in the Belgium Colonial Museum? You can read about this charter and a lot of other articles on AfriCapri Foundation. If our leaders are still supporting France like this, whereby France is extracting $500 billion a year from 14 African countries, and if our leaders are still supporting explorers, travel tales of exotic Africa, missionaries, educational systems of Europe, charter companies that are still represented on our stock exchanges, our revolution is in the coffin, ready to be buried. We look forward to working with you. You can contact us on join@marifado.com and get in touch with us on our website and also on our app, Marifado app. A year of transformation where we take again up our revolution. Join the movement that is fighting the God set at all levels, mentally, physically, spiritually, and materially. In this case, it is only for those that have not sold their souls to the devil, to Shatta, but they are supporting the revolution that is going places. Do not support those that deny your worship and the love of our own melanin-dominant divinities and ancestors. To explore many informative spiritual science topics, enroll into our 14-module Bantu Foundations training using our website shown here and also our email john@marifado. The revolution has been lost, but it can be picked up again, and many have picked it using the spiritual hands and the mental brain, and we are going forward physically and materially. Yes, till we meet again, your manager Topi Priest Rabbi LM Tumizulu Kunikenim Jakanja Mskaban, saying, find your glow again and light the revolution. Amen.